I mean, at this point, when the mic died and the audio died, I had to call SoCal and get in. My main focus was actually landing, and sadly not on Twitch. And then when I started the brief, you guys heard me kind of go, oh, bummer. No, I definitely should have left all the heats on, but what happened initially here, so hopefully you guys have been looking at the sim and not a black screen the whole time. Good, you are. But what happened was we were initially in a VFR configuration, right? So this was already up because I was not expecting us to get into clouds. Now, granted, when I went into the weather, I should have pulled this down. And I didn't, and I completely forgot to do a fuel check, because if we turn these back on, there was nothing left. And I just didn't even look at this timer. Right, we have a clock here that always runs, and I just never looked at this clock and went every 20, 30 minutes, I need to do a fuel swap. I just didn't even think about it. And then we got carb ice, and then our engine died, and we got the carb ice warning, and so that's what made me go, oh, garbage. Like, we're pretty much not going to do well. Let me turn off that setting so I won't get the carb ice warning in the future. When we have incomplete sceneries. I don't want you to. I don't care that much. Notify me of updates, start each flight, engines running, reset on hard crash. That's not what I really want to do. Where's notify me in cockpit? Yeah, require warn of low frame rates. I don't remember where it is. I'll have to find it and turn it off again. Anyway. The heck out of Dodge. Huh, that's a good one. Yeah, it was a pretty bad ILS approach, but let's go ahead. Yeah, so we hit the RPM drop and then everything else. The DG is aligned, so I can't align the DG myself, but it's aligned to the same data ref as the compass. Yeah, that would have sucked in an engine failure. Like, the engine died, our DG wouldn't be spinning, unless it can spin off the battery. No, I did bring back in the mixture, so that way the engine didn't die. Now, this one does have a carburetor. The 195 has a carburetor. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't sit here for days with the carb open when I don't need it, because you're just taking the exhaust and putting it back in the engine. But I mean, would I leave it a crack open if I knew I was going to do IFR stuff? Then when I went IFR, just plop it down. That's something that I need to start doing, apparently. Perfect. You'd buy I know, I would buy a shit ton of copies of it. And I have mad respect for his sound engine, and I really looked forward to him doing it. But who's holding back? Yeah, the Dreamfoil. Who made... is that who made this? Hello, Steve. How you doing? This is made by Soulmade Simulations, but he uses Dreamfoil and Dream Engine. Mr. Snap, you made it just in time for... Oh, it's 6:30. You made it just in time for what I was going to say would be a 2-hour brief, but now that I realize it's going to be an hour brief, because I am already hungry. Pilot Edge we've disconnected from, which will be important for the replay. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we had here. This is not the weather conditions. No way was this the weather conditions when we were flying. For those of you guys who were wondering what the weather conditions were when we were flying, that was the weather conditions when we were flying. Because if I go up to here, oops. We're going forward still. Hello? There we go. Nope, I've broken it. I've broken X-plane. We're traveling at great distances in the forward direction. There we go. If I went up like this, then everything disappears, right? So then we can't get a top-down view. There's rain inside the clouds. Is there rain falling down below the clouds? Yeah, there's some rain too. But the weird part is, I don't know what I've done to the new cloud shader that I'm running. But those are like, the frames are fine. I don't know what I've done. I've done something good. I've done something good to the frames. Okay, so all right, back to this shenanigans. All right, so let me clear up the weather. So we weren't dealing with purely VFR conditions and I was this bad of a pilot. Because if it was VFR, I probably would have had some issues we didn't have any reference. But here in Kavik, so we can brief it, or else we would have landed in this water treatment plant probably, which would have been very stinky. So there's our initial approach fix, and this is us oscillating through the whole approach. Now you can see we got stable right about here, and guess what happened right there? That's when we could see the ground. And then we were below glide slope that whole time for a very, very long time. Now I thought I had GPB 500s SBP installed, but it looks like it's not installed correctly because that looks like a Lego brick. Right, so that was us being above it. But when we initially caught it, so let's look at this line when it starts to deviate. There we go. We were below the optimal glide slope. We weren't below where it was fully deviated, but it was deviated so we were flying too low. And then we went visual, and then I had to wait until we got cleared in, and so you can see I started a crab here, and then we landed. Now on the landing, due to the winds, let me get rid of all of this jargon that's here. I almost said mumbo jumbo. That's not what it was. Control P, Control P. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at the replay of the landing, because I'm going to brief something. And this is the first time I've done it, so I might have done it incorrectly. This is us oscillating back and forth. Ooh, the ortho photo, so pretty. Not really the whole point of the stream. It's pretty, but that's not really the goal of why I did this flight. I did this flight for fun, and it turned out to be a nightmare. Nightmare! So this is us on the crab here. So the winds, you guys got to remember, the sim will preserve the winds when you go Kavik. Or Havoc. Anyway, when you go Kavik, it'll preserve the winds. So that was the wind component we were dealing with. And so this is me doing some wind correction for it. And I'm just trying to get us close to center line. Now in a tail dragger, if I landed like this, there we go. That's our direction of flight. That's our direction of taxi. So we came in here. I kicked a whole metric ton of rudder. Okay. Here comes the metric ton of rudder kick. Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. There it is. So we slapped in a ton of rudder to get the wheels straight. And then I was like, wait a second. When I do that, I'm going to need cross aileron control. Because I'm going to be kicking this plane through, and then I need to counter the wind somehow. So I'll need to get it in a little bit of a bank, which is what you see via the different deflections of the ailerons here. And then we touched, and there was a bounce. That's fine. Not the best. And right there. Now, why are we going this way? See, that's the weird part. I have full brake, not locked. I shouldn't say full brake. I have partial brake here, no brake on this tire, full rudder, and aileron. Now, maybe I should have added some power, but I just let it go. And then once our rear wheel was on, we regained directional control. But what was weird to me was here. First landing, fine. Correct directional control. We bounce back up into the air. I still have the same amount of rudder input in. Still the same. Increasing the rudder input. Increasing slightly aileron. And then we touch and we're going this way. But I have left aileron in, so maybe it was the left aileron was digging our tire into the ground. That could have been it, I guess. But that was not the best landing. And then blah, blah, blah. We kept the taxi going. Like, it's not a landing I'm happy with. And then here is the weird part. Now, we had that wind acting on the tail in this direction, which means our plane wanted to rotate this way. And you'll see that here. There goes the tail being hit with a wind gust. Me countering it. Us still in the turn. Full countering it, adding back pressure, and then diff brake. Now, I don't know if it's because these tires don't have enough friction on that, but that was definitely surprisingly sporty. And then we turned off and we went to parking. Alright, so. Whew. What's up, Mr. F-18? How you doing, man? Yeah, the approach path is kind of crappy, but yeah, I see his ortho. What zoom level do I have? So I went a little stir crazy because I fly helicopters and gliders. So this is zoom level 18. Oh, this is his stuff. That's not my stuff. This is my stuff. And that's zoom level 18. Now the reason why I did 18 is because 18 is visible at about 500 feet and clearly. And zoom level 17 is visible at like 1,000 feet clearly. And because I fly helicopters, which fly at about 500 feet, I picked zoom level 18. I need a light so it doesn't feel like I'm inside a cave. There we go. Lights are on. Okay, so. Whew. Are we ready to get into the brief? Because this is going to be an interesting brief for sure. And I think the brief is valuable. Because guess what we're going to be briefing? I don't really care about everything up to the approach was fine. I don't need to brief the flying. Now we knew that the altitude and the heading was a little off. I'm going to partially blame that on not doing IFR in a long time and also not having the gauges where I was used to. So it was a difference in panel. I wasn't ready to fly IFR in the plane, but yet we still kind of got ourselves into IFR. All right? So that's what we're narrowing that one down to. Yeah, I mean, the issue with zoom level 18, so before we get fully into the brief here, the issue with zoom level 18 is that it is 22 gigs one tile. And for all of SoCal, there are, I think, like 20 to 30, no, what is it? JSnap, you might be able to fill this in a bit better. But it goes 18, 17, 16, 15, 18, 17, 16, 15 twice, so that's 8. And then it goes 21 to 15, which is 13 times 1, 2, 3. So there are at least 26 tiles in the pilot edge coverage area that I did as zoom level 18, which is 22 or more times 26. And right there's about half a terabyte of data for photoreal. So if you have space, it's the way to go. Zoom level 17 is about, what is it? It's about 10, I think. Anyway. Yeah. So, let's go ahead and take a look at the brief here. Yeah, I mean, zoom level 17 is fine if you're going to do GA stuff. JSnap has a cool thing where it'll zone it out for you, so as you get near an airport, it'll look perfectly fine, assuming they don't do different colorations in the imagery. But, so what I'm talking about there is like zoom level 17 USA2 is one color. Zoom level 18 USA2 is a slightly different shade, and zoom level 19 USA2 is brown. Like, it is brown. And so they use different, it's just because of the color accuracy of the image when they took it and how they edited it. Anyway, let's go ahead and let's jump into the brief. I'll try and keep it quick. If we need some music because it's getting kind of boring, let me know. So today we were doing a flight from Lima 88 to KS BP, which is New Cumana something or other to San Luis Obispo Airport. The departure was okay. It wasn't IFR. It was okay for a VFR departure. Our cruise, we already talked about. Let's move on to the approach / arrival, because I think that is where, I think, that's funny, I made a joke. Approach and arrival. Alright, let's go ahead and talk about that. So, in the beginning with our approach and arrival, everything was fine, except for one point. On the, let's grab the VOR name, MQO. The MQO flip. Alright, so we're going to be focusing on subsections here. Altitude-wise, that was okay. Heading-wise, we didn't actually do proper wind correction. Oh, my handwriting's terrible. The wind correction and speed-wise, we were okay. But here was the issue with what we did. We did not advise ATC soon enough. Oh man, good test of the spelling. Good test of the spelling. That we didn't have nav2. Oh wow, that was terrible. No nav2. We should have just asked for vectors in the beginning. So this partially destabilized our approach. Okay. Then after that, we were flying a heading. So that was the 250 HDG down to 4,000 is what we were cleared to. Let's go ahead and do the same thing. Altitude was not as good as it should have been. We needed to keep a stable descent rate. We weren't really able to keep a stable descent rate. If you were watching, we were oscillating between a climb and a descent. We weren't able to maintain about 500 feet per minute or greater, which is kind of a goal for me of sorts. What's up, TA Sanford? We are just debriefing. It's not the worst flight I ever did, but there were a lot of hiccups that made the flight, the previous stream, which I had to chunk because my audio broke, one of the more interesting ones I've ever done. We dealt with an engine failure on vectors to intercept an ILS, which turned out originally to be carb ice. We got a carb ice warning, but then it turned out to be inadequate fuel, and I forgot to switch tanks. So that comes later. I wasn't able to keep that 500 foot per minute descent rate. Our speed in the descent, we'll do in the DESC. In the descent, we got very close, not to VNE, but in the descent, got close to what's called max maneuvering speed, or max man, which would have meant we couldn't have done a 6G pull if we needed to. Let's keep going here through all of this stuff. Oh, look, you hear my voice again. Yay. All right, so that was all of that fun sauce. Let's go ahead and take a look here at our heading control. Now, we were dealing with wind shear, which did put us into a little bit of PIO, right? So the wind shear put us into PIO, which is a pilot-induced oscillation. Okay. If you guys saw anything that I'm missing, feel free to like slap it into the chat here. I'm going to see if I have any beverage left. I don't think I do. Nope, there was a little bit. There was a little bit of beverage, but not much. Which is a bummer because I'm getting stupid hungry. Okay, so down to 4,000 feet. Then we got a right turn, so that was back to red. Route red this is how I'm kind of debriefing it. We got a right turn to 070, and we're still at 4,000 feet. Okay. Let's keep the same format, kind of. So we'll go to altitude. We were holding okay. I mean, we were holding the altitude. It wasn't ideal. We were holding the altitude plus minus 100 most times, which really it was minus 100 most times. We didn't really deviate above 100 feet of our 4,000 feet. We deviated below it by about 100 most times, and at one point we're minus 150. Okay, so what is the solution for this? Better planning, better response time to the deviation, aka yet again the key thing in IFR, a better scan, right? Because that was the problem I was having. Let's continue going through here. Speed, as per the usual, we were flying at Mach 1, so it was okay. Just kidding. We were flying fast enough that it was a concern, but not too fast that we would break the gear off. Okay, but a little fast. All right, we'll be kind of honest here. This isn't an actual debrief. I need to get back into doing a full debrief. This is the way I do my debriefs. It kind of works. Heading. In the turn, it was the turn, if you guys remember, that turn was unstable. What happens next? Well, we got a right turn. This was a left turn. We got a right turn 080 to intercept the ILS RWY 11 at 4,000 feet. Okay. Perfect. Oh, I've scared away half the viewers. I don't get it. Okay, whatever, that's fine. I appreciate you guys who are still here. Like, I looked at the viewer count, I was like, oh, cool, 30 people are still here, and now it's like 15. I'm like, oh, okay. They don't like the debriefs. They don't like the debriefs, for sure. Let's go ahead and take a look at the altitude here. Let's see, is Gibbs streaming? Is Gibbsy streaming? No. Okay, so the altitude for this is when we hit the engine failure, right? So I think we can all agree that the altitude was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. The speed was terrible. And the heading holding, at this point we were in emergency mode, that was also terrible. Oh, thank you very much, Chili. Yeah, I'll take a look at the message you sent me once we finished. I do look at viewer counts once in a while. It's a good reference. So like if I do something new, like you guys haven't seen a functional debrief from me in a long time. So this is something new for a lot of people. And so I understand it scared them away because they can't handle reading someone's handwriting as they explained where they went wrong. So this is when we actually had the engine failure. Now, it wasn't really an engine failure. It was an issue of the fact that I forgot about fuel management. And I also just kind of lost thinking about the engine. Like I was in like what I'll call a 172 mode, right? So the issue with the 172, in my not so humble opinion, it's a great training plane, but the issue is if you fly any other type of plane, you will most likely have to switch tanks unless you keep with Cessna or you go experimental. And so if you don't get into a good habit of remembering to check your tanks, then you do what just happened there, where you assume you are fine, you have enough fuel for days, and you end up hopefully your engine will sputter before it quits, and you'll be like, oh, it can't be carb ice. It might be engine. It might be fuel. Oh, crap. And you fix it before your engine dies. That's not what happened. So we lost thinking about the engine, which is a huge problem, as we found out. Notepad Sim 2016. Yeah, seriously. It really is. But Crazy Diamond, I don't know if you were there for that approach, but whew. It was unplanned VFR into IFR. So it was a planned VFR flight that went IFR. I updated the weather, and we were hard IFR, 8,500 feet. Could not see a bee in front of my plane, or a goose. And it was interesting. It gave me a whole new respect for what I was doing. Like a planned IFR flight, I'm much better than IFR into VFR, and it showed me areas where I need to work on. Anyway, let's see what else we got here. So we had an engine failure, forgot about the engine. So the solution to this is to remember that we have an engine. Remember. I have to work on these colors better. We have an engine. Right, so literally I forgot we had an engine. I just went into engine is power. I forgot that the engine is power that needs fuel. I forgot the needed fuel bit. And that's what got us into the trouble, because instantly I saw that flashing thing that said carb ice, and I plopped the carb ice down, and then we had an engine failure, which made me go. It was a carb ice based engine failure. It was a clogging of the inlet because of ice. No, it wasn't. It was a clogging of fuel because there was no fuel in the line. It was a clogging of air in the fuel. Anyway, so then we recovered it, and now we get to the beauty job, eh? The ILS, runway 11 into KSBP. Okay, so we will talk about the solution to the problem. First, actually, we'll talk about the problems as we knew it. It was a wet noodle approach. There's a lot of target fixation that happened. And not only did we have target fixation, but there was a lot of focus on past. Okay, so in that flight, even though one thing that I've read they have to do is you have to disregard what just happened before. So you flew an incorrect heading, and now they tell you to fly an ILS. If you're still thinking, how did I miss that heading? How could I have misheard the controller? Now you're 5 miles off course for the ILS, and now you have to get back on the ILS. And now you're thinking, why couldn't I fly that heading? Why was I not focused on the gauges? What is this controller telling me to do? How could I mess this up so bad? And now you're 5 miles the other direction. And now you have a phone number on a piece of paper you have to call, and you're being vectored, that they canceled your approach clearance, and now you're being vectored again. And now you're thinking, great, now I have to call someone. How did I miss that heading? So you have to let the past come back in the debrief, but not be a fixation while you're flying. And then what happened there was I was focused on the past action of our engine dying and not on the task at hand. Okay, once again, we missed... Ew, that's not how you spell the word missed. We missed. It's not mist like clouds. It is missed. Missed, whatever. Misjudged. Justice. Great. Good job. Good writing. Good writing. Judged. Jesus. Misjudged wind correction. Okay? So let's talk... Ooh, there's a C in correction. Let's talk about how we can fix all of these issues. Okay? We're going to go green to fix the issues. The wet noodle approach, guess what that was caused by? Target fixation. We were focused on a target, so we must keep scanning. I missed you. Oh, God. That's funny. Hello, Lumber. How you doing, man? We're just debriefing a terrible approach. So I must keep scanning. I did not do that. That is one of the things that led to the huge issue that we had. So because we were left of course, by the time I saw it, I started target fixating, thinking, okay, now we need a 30-degree intercept. I got to 30 degrees, looked back at the gauge, and now it had deviated the other way. So what I needed to do was start the turn, hold the turn, watch the gauge, go back to the DG, go to speed, go to artificial horizon, go back to the DG and go, that's 30 degrees, go back to the approach, right? Scan my gauges, go back to the glide slope and go, oh snap, crackle, pop, it's moving, I need to move the right way. And so what also happened is I wasn't stable enough to really initialize that wind correction angle and hold it, right? So I knew my wind correction angle was between 8 to 12 degrees to the right of the published course to fly that approach. I knew that, but the issue was I didn't have enough time or apparently memory to hold that in memory and go, okay, I need to hold 112. Even though the needle or 122, even though the needle deviated to the right, if I go back to 110, the needle's going to swing back to the right. The needle's to the left, I can't go to 110 because the needle's going to swing back to the right, and then I'm going to have to do a 30-degree intercept because of how long it's taking me to respond. So because we didn't have a stable approach, I wasn't able to calculate a wind correction. And that's not busting out pilot math. I mean, yeah, you can bust out pilot math and go, okay, the wind's coming from here, I'm flying this way, I'm at this speed, the wind's at this speed, therefore it's a component of this, which means I need to turn this much to deviate my directional vector this way. No. You fly it and you go, this heading, no, we're still deviating a little to the left. Let's increase that heading. Okay, now it's going to the right, so let's decrease it, and you find a middle ground that way. That's what I would do. I wouldn't bust out calculus in the middle of a flight, especially when you saw how task saturated I was. I even forgot about the engine. Okay, so I didn't calculate a wind correction. I almost wrote wind correction, double wind correction. Wind correction by hand or by brain is what we're going to call it. Dude, I mean, that would be super fun. I mean, Lumber, that'd be super cool. So I flew into San Luis Obispo. I did not plan for an IFR flight. So this whole thing could have been avoided. Oh, that's a terrible curly bracket. Oop, well, that's even worse. Could have been avoided by looking at a METAR, right? Because then I could have planned for an IFR flight, got into the brain set, got those gears turning, and not have had such a bad flight. But I didn't. I knew the METAR that I had was old and wasn't current. I knew that it was VFR at the airport I was departing from, and most likely because it wasn't past 7, the marine layer hadn't started to roll in. But what I forgot about was yesterday there was forecast for rain all up and down the SoCal coast, with low-lying clouds and fog. That was forecast last night at 11. I forgot it. And this is what happened. And now we need like the CSI music to come on. Bum, bum, bottom, bum. Anyway, back to where we're going. So I was focused on the past, right? So the solution to this is leave it for the debrief. You will remember it. Just leave it for the debrief. Okay? The handy part about doing the flight sim, leave it for the debrief. No, it's debrief. The handy part about the flight sim is, guess what? You can watch the whole replay of your flight. Guess what a handy part is about me doing this stream? I can go back and watch my whole stream. The issue is I was talking so much, at a certain point I was also talking to you guys, which took part of the brain and put it into a stream conversation and not on what I was flying. Because I was like, oh, it'll be so cool. I'll explain in the debrief. We'll talk about wind correction. And then the needle is now 2 clicks to the left. And I'm still talking as I start the turn. And then it's 4 clicks to the right, right? And I'm just talking to you guys, and I completely forgot about it. Victor Uniform, how you doing? How you doing? Wind correction, you can use an E6B. Yeah, I mean, you can. Yeah, that's assuming you like the E6B. But in all honesty, would I have gotten out the E6B and used it? Probably not. At that point, after everything that happened in the condition and state that my brain was in, if I had thought it through, I would have just flown it by hand and watched the needle deviate and figured out where I needed to be. If I had planned ahead and was flying with the autopilot, oh, my voice sound, that was weird, and I was flying with the autopilot, I would have grabbed the ATIS and I would have known, and then I would have pre-planned for the wind. But because I was hand flying, I didn't have someone else to tune the radios. As you saw, what happened there was I was on another thing. This is good stuff. It was frequency. That's not blue, that's green. Frequencies. Oh, you plug in the numbers and boom. There you go. It's not one of them slide rules. It was frequency control. Now, for those of you guys who didn't notice what happened, I will explain it to you. Oh, I can't write on these charts because they suck. Oh, well, I can. But their writing app sucks. Okay. Here's the frequency that I tuned us to. So we were flying. I know my mic died. All right, let me see if I can do this better. So I will do segments based on what frequency I was on at the time I was flying. Okay? So this here, whoops, this color, hello, pen, there we go. This color we will call SoCal. Okay, so I was on SoCal. All the way through it to here. And at this point, I realized I can see the airport. So I went to the very first non-ATIS frequency I saw, which was here. So at this point, I contact Santa Barbara Approach and go, Santa Barbara Tower, 827 Whiskey Uniform, short final ILS runway 11. Okay? Santa Barbara Approach then goes, go to tower. Excellent. Now we're on tower. That's a little unrealistic. Let's make those a little bit more realistic. Now I'm on tower, okay? And we are probably, if I recall, over the extended, we're over the approach lights at tower. And then he issues someone a clearance. And I have to get a word in. So I tell him, Santa Barbara Tower, 7 Whiskey Uniform, short final 11. And I talked stupid quick. Sorry you couldn't hear it. It was really quite quickly that I was talking. And he just said cleared to land. And I was done. And we landed. Luckily, we didn't have to contact ground, or if he told me to contact ground, I was so focused on the fact that we actually made it and the plane was handling weird that I didn't even think about it. So that was the issue here, was I did not go to approach. I missed my handoff to approach. I'm sure I got it. I know Chase gave me a handoff to approach. Chase is in here. I know you gave me a handoff, and I missed it completely. That was probably when the engine died. He told me 080 and contact approach, right? And I was just like 080 and we have a dead engine. So at that point, my focus was now the engine. and not the radio frequency I should have been on. But when I called him back, he didn't tell me to make the frequency change again, which made me completely forget about that interaction to change frequencies. And so I held that frequency until I could see the airport. And it was like, oh, first frequency. And then that's what happened. So what I need to do is copy and pasta into Paint. I need to focus focus on the chart more. That was the issue with that. Now, I knew I should have been at tower. I just forgot to get over to tower, right? So that was completely my issue. Good evening, Victor Uniform. Misjudged. Wait, did I write misjudged? 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 What did I write? At this point, as you can tell, my English is completely gone. Oh, yeah, I see it. It makes sense. Yep. Whoops. Here we go. Thank you, Lumber. Misjudged. That's how the English word looks. I was like, it does look weird when I was writing it. Yeah, so the hold entry, that's pretty self-explanatory for those of you guys who saw the hold entry. Well, what we would have done for a hold entry, we didn't even do a hold entry, is we would have done a direct hold, because we were coming this way, and we would have had to go like this. Sorry, a parallel entry, not a teardrop. Dang it, it doesn't remember my eraser. There we go. We would have had to do, let's color coordinate this shit, because we can. Oh wow, that's really color coordinated. I would have had to do a parallel entry in, and then do a loop in the pattern. That's what I wanted to do, because then I could have stabilized the plane, I could have dealt with the wind correction, and I could have been fine. But the issue was I took the vectors, and I was like, that's fine, because we don't have DME, so we couldn't have flown the hold. Problem. So, that's what happened there. If we got the hold, we would have done a direct entry, because we were coming in this direction. Okay, let's go to colors. Colors! And we'll do pink. Right, so we were entering it this way, which would have meant we would have had to come in this way and enter the hold and do something like that. Right? Pretty simple, pretty self-explanatory. Misjudged. She was a fine lady. Yeah, she ruled the court system for a long time. Alright guys, so if there was something that I missed, feel free to let me know. I think that kind of covers the brief in about 30 minutes. If it wasn't almost 7 o'clock and I wasn't actually hungry, I would probably spend a lot more time on this brief. But we'll keep the debrief brief, and we'll toss it to Lumberhacks to fly his 210 and do a very similar brief. Lumber, in all seriousness though, if you wanted to do some hard IFR flying, it's just rolling up and down the SoCal coast. So take off San Luis Obispo, head down to like Santa Barbara, excuse me, go to SMO, head over to Van Nuys, whatever. But pretty much one IFR flight of this caliper makes me go, I need food, and my stomach agrees. So, Lumber, we're waiting for you to say you're going live with 210. So yeah, I've learned a valuable lesson about reading METARs. Like, you hear it all the time in YouTube videos, and you're like, it won't happen to me, and then it happens to you in the sim, and it's super awkward because you're streaming it live on Twitch. Alright, man. Yeah, I might even hop in and join you, because at that time I should be able to get some food inside of me. And I'll probably hop into the sim and join you for some legs. Some legs? Some chicken wangs. Alright guys, I think that'll pretty much do it for me. That was a debrief on this. I'm not going to publish this, but obviously it'll be in the stream. I might do a highlight of the whole stream, just because it lets you guys come back to it and revisit it and go, oh. Because now you get to see when someone loses track of what they need to do, what can happen. And so I'm not happy it happened. It happened. There's nothing I can do. But, you know, it's a learning experience for me and for you guys as well. So with that, we'll go back to shitty IFR weather. This is GPB 500